Hello again, Stroke and welcome back to my channel. Today I would like to share with you my first impressions from playing Minecraft Dungeons. I have only spent around 15 hours yesterday playing the game, so my knowledge may not be entirely complete, and I will be making extensive beginner's guides soon. But before that, let's go over some of the things that I saw, some of the things I like, some of the things I think could need some improvement as well, and maybe help you decide whether this is the right game for you or whether it is just not going to cut it for you as regards what you're looking for in a game. So what I think myself is that overall it's a nice hack and slash RPG game which is set in the Minecraft universe, and I think it can appeal to players from different demographics and with different gameplay preferences. So even if you're more of a hardcore player and want to challenge yourself, push the limits of your builds, this would be able to provide you with such challenge and with enough build customization to experiment, and enough engaging boss fights and random encounters with certain other semi-boss enemies. So that's for the hardcore players, and for the more casual players who just wanna kill stuff, wood stuff and get stronger little bit by bit, they can choose to play easier difficulties and easier tiers of the enemies maps, and eventually slowly but steadily still progress the game, and it's a lot of fun. And the main thing about the game is it can be played in online or local couch co-op in a team of up to 4 people. So you can start your PC or console and play with up to 4 people on the same machine. Of course that's probably not gonna work on a Switch unless you are maybe multiplayer switching, but right now there is no crossplay, so PC players can play with other PC players and Xbox with Xbox and so on. But it's nice that even on one machine you can play with 4 people, and that is true for PC, not just for consoles. Another thing that the game can offer, let's talk about the customization, the build variety. I think it offers a plethora of build customization that comes from picking a weapon, armor and ranged weapon, each with up to 3 enchantments, which are kind of passive skills or procs, as you can see from the footage that I'm showing you right now. Each of those can vary from things like life leech or damage reduction to piercing shots, shock waves, combo finishers that get triggered at the end of your weapons combo. Then there's AoE healing procs, and there's so many more, like an arrow that grows as you shoot it, or when you're shooting an enemy it has a chance to split and shoot multiple arrows in different directions. There's just so much customization that I haven't even explored all of it yet, and the little bits I'm showing you now maybe would give you some ideas about different builds you can do. I've been having fun with my viewers last night and we really enjoyed kind of semi-tanky wife leech healing build with damage reduction, and it was pretty nice. Fast attack speed, fast wife leeches and so on with some healing was amazing. Then on top of that you have artifacts which cannot be enchanted, and those are kind of, let's say, they're spells and active skills in the game. There's things like movement speed buffs for X seconds, or magic beam that you channel but that requires souls, which is kind of like the mana, and you don't have any mana when you start, you have to keep killing enemies to get souls. So some of the spells, the more caster kind of oriented things, require souls, others are on a cooldown. So you have something like an explosive fireworks arrow that doesn't use your arrows as a resource, but modifies the next time you shoot your crossbow or bow to actually shoot those explosive arrows. Then there's 3 summons, as you can see on your screen. That's the Wama, the Golem and the Wolf. And there's this attack speed buff boost for a few seconds. Then there's a healing one that you can cast, and there's healing to them as well. There's skill that kind of decreases the damage enemies do in a radius around you, so applies a weakness debuff on them. And then weakness also can be obtained from an enhancement on an armor as well, so, or a weapon, I think. So there's many combinations, and keep in mind there's a common enchantment for the skills, for the item enchantments of your weapon, ranged weapon, and of your armor. But I didn't notice big differences in the stats. In fact, I didn't notice any differences in the stats of a common and an powerful version. The difference I did notice is the healing circle of a powerful radiance seems to be bigger, a wider area of effect than the common version of a radiance healing enchantment. So I'm thinking that instead of them becoming stronger, they're kind of getting a more powerful effects, more different and wider AoEs and things like that. That's probably what it is. I haven't experimented with enough of those to tell you how each of them works, but at least the example of the healing I can give you. So to those of you who are interested about the difficulty options that we have, there are plenty of those that the game can offer you, and they come from two sources. First, map tiers, second, difficulty mode. Let's talk about the map tiers first. Each mission, and there's 9 missions you can do in the story, can be done in different tiers. The first few missions you can do from tier 1 all the way to tier 6, each of those increasing the recommended gear level or power level of your character, and increasing the difficulty and the level of the enemies as well, giving you a higher end bracket of the items and artifacts that can drop, higher level of those. So on top of those difficulties, you do have 3 let's say the game mode difficulties, which is default, adventure and apocalypse. Those are pretty similar to Diablo 2's normal, nightmare and hell modes, which is kind of like a new game plus and new game plus plus, maybe you can call it, modes, where you have to finish the game in default to unlock adventure. Then you can have to complete all 9 missions in adventure to unlock apocalypse. And there's some reasons why people would want to play on the adventure and apocalypse modes. The major reasons would be, first of all, harder, more challenging difficulty. Second of all, it unlocks new items that can only drop on adventure or apocalypse, and only on apocalypse as well. So adventure has items that cannot drop on default, but can also drop on apocalypse, and apocalypse has items that can only drop on apocalypse and not on default or adventure. So eventually you wanna finish default, you wanna finish adventure, and then you wanna start leveling up and getting stronger and stronger until you can handle the strongest apocalypse can offer. Because even if you're not doing the strongest content in apocalypse, you can still get the best items, or maybe not, let's not say the best, but the items you might want for your build that do not drop on the previous difficulties. So the game would still offer for the more casual players a chance to pick slightly easier enemies to play against. But keep in mind that there's one caveat here. As I said, certain maps allow you to play certain tiers. So as you go through the story, you would notice that certain maps have a minimum difficulty level. So the first few levels you can play between tier 1 and tier 6. Then there's levels that start from minimum tier 2, then minimum tier 3, tier 4, and tier 5 gets to be the minimum for the final map, for example. So the final map can only be played on tier 5 and tier 6. So if you want to be farming items that can only drop on the final map, on the final difficulty, on Apocalypse, then you would have to get stronger. You would have to play and replay some of the previous maps, get enough gear, or get better and even try and play it with not that good of a gear, with a huge power difference between your items and the enemies, if you think you can handle this. So there's gonna be challenge for anyone who wants it, and there's a lot of customization. So we said that there's 9 story missions in total, but that's not all there is the game can offer. So on top of those story missions, where for the first mission we select between tiers 1 and 6, we have another thing that is secret missions. And secret missions is something that you unlock by finding a secret room or an item in a secret room, something that allows you to unlock the secret mission. And those you can find in the regular missions. So you do the regular 9 missions, you find something that's hidden, and that hidden something unlocks a secret mission on your map that you can start doing and redoing as much as you want and farm for certain things that drop there. They are normally short. I've only played 2 and I've only unlocked 2 of them, which come from the first couple of levels, from the first couple of missions. But on one of them I had to solve a couple of puzzles to unlock a room with a chest. Of course, each of the puzzles was unlocked after fighting a certain wave of enemies. So I fight a wave of enemies, then I reach a puzzle, I solve it, I unlock something. Then I go into another room, I fight a wave of enemies, I reach a puzzle, I solve that puzzle, and I unlock another something, which in total allows me to reach a third room, where I would again fight some enemies and then get some I think it's called a diamond chest, the best chest. It looks like a blue chest. So it is interesting, and if you like that stuff, you might have to explore, try and find those tricky puzzles, solve them, and find those secrets, find the secret missions. My guess is there's 9 secret missions, 1 for each regular mission, but if there's more, feel free to let me know if someone has confirmed it. Or if there's less, which is quite possible. Maybe not every mission has a secret mission attached to it, but definitely a nice little bit of variety. Now there's something else I like to talk about, and that is the gamble NPCs. There's a couple of NPCs in the town that you can use to gamble, one for artifacts and one for gear, and by gear I mean armor, melee weapon and ranged weapon. So you can try your luck on those. You can spend emeralds that you get from farming and killing enemies and from looting lootable objects in the maps, and those items that you get from the gamblers can be of any rarity. So it can be common, it can be green, it can be legendary, it's completely random, and it can be anything. So when you're gambling for gear, you're not selecting what type of gear you're gambling for, you're just selecting to gamble. You can get a crossbow, you can get a sword, you can get a dagger, you can get a melee armor, mage armor, etc. And then when you're gambling for an artifact, it can be any of the artifacts. So at least this allows you to kind of focus on artifacts or on gear. So not that much focus, but still there is some focus. So if you're unlucky with drops from enemies, try your luck in the gambler. If you don't like the RNGness of the gambler, then try farming the map or maps that have the item you want in their dedicated wood pool. And speaking of dedicated wood pools, I'd like to mention that each map has a specific wood pool of items and artifacts that can drop on it. Of course, certain items would drop in more than just one map, and you have to pick which map you want to keep replaying if you want to farm a legendary good version of a certain item. If you know that, if you know, for example, you want that legendary crossbow or legendary dagger, and you know it drops in this map, and you know that the ability of this legendary one, unique one, gives you the option you want for a specific build you want to try, then you replay this map and just keep doing it until eventually it drops. Or you gamble, and hope for something like that to drop for you. So there's options, not many, but there are. So what do we do with unwanted gear? Well, we salvage them. We salvage the unwanted gear for emeralds, which we also get from drops, as I said. And those are used for the two types of gambling. That is how we get the currency to gamble. So salvaging an enchanted item will also give the player back all enchantment points that have been used on this item, on top of the emeralds of the power level of the item that it's worth. Another thing people might be wondering about is what happens when we die. Well, if a player dies while playing solo, they have 3 lives that can be used to resurrect them, and the 4th time will end the map. So use all 3 resurrections, die 4th time, and then it's over. You don't get punished, unlike other games that punish you and give you a penalty for each time you die, giving you less wood and less rewards. There is no such bullshit here. You have your 4 lives, use it well. If you want, don't die. If you want, die. It's up to you. If you can survive without dying, so be it. If you can't, don't feel pressure to survive. As long as you don't die 4 times, then you're good to go for the end of the map. And what happens when you're playing co-op? When you're playing co-op, the team shares resurrections, but resurrections are only used up if all team members are dead. So if there's even a single player alive that can resurrect or get up the others, it will not use up one of those lives. So what happens when a player gets downed or killed in combat in co-op? The teammates that are up have 30 seconds to revive this player. Once those 30 seconds expire, the player can still be revived or gotten up, but the players start taking damage over time. The ones that are alive would start taking damage over time, and if they don't have anything to deal with that damage over time, or if they don't revive the player, this damage over time will not stop, and then everyone would die, and then the mission would not fail, but it would just use up one of the team resurrects, one of the shared resurrections. So that's a pretty nice strategy, pretty nice way of handling death and punishment in the game. It's not too punishing, it's not too bad, and it forces people to stick together, think a bit more defensively, and support each other. The game's boss fight and champion encounters all have specific mechanics that the player needs to learn and adapt to. There are probably multiple viable strategies for each of those, but upgrading your gear level to be on par with the content you do will also play a big part in making things easier for you. So you might have to keep grinding and get stronger if you reach a place in the game where you just can't beat a certain boss. You also have to learn that boss's mechanics and adapt to them. There are certain ways to cheese certain bosses, and there are definitely ways to cheese the game in general, regardless whether it's a boss fight or not. If you're about to die, there's ways to save yourself as long as you have enough HP to afford jumping off of a cliff or something and get back to a safe point. So those you would end up experimenting with and finding out. I'm not gonna talk much about those. So there's probably multiple viable strategies for each of those boss encounters, I believe, and there will be an upcoming DLC. This DLC adds more levels, it says it adds 2 new adventures and the islands map. So there's most likely going to be items that only drop in the DLC content, or items that have higher chance to drop in the DLC content. I believe they would use the same design in their previous missions. Specific items drop in maps X, Y, Z, and the new maps would have specific items that drop in those, new artifacts that drop in those. So that's gonna open up more build variety. So hopefully it will be nice. You can see that the developers already teased this in the game, so only time will tell what exactly it will be. I'm expecting for them to review more details within the next 1 or 2 weeks. We'll see. So now let's talk about some of the things I think the game could do to improve. It's not that it's something that's super bad, but there are things that maybe some people would not like, and there is no shared stash for once. No shared stash as far as I saw at least, and there's no way to disenchant an item without destroying it. So, for example, if you have reached a point where you wanna start experimenting with items without losing the items, so for example, I'm playing a tank now, but let's say I wanna play a mage. But let's say I want to save my tank items without destroying them, but still get my enchant points. Well, I can't do that right now. Right now, if I want to go for a mage build and be able to actually enchant my mage items, I have to disenchant my tank items by destroying them. So I would have to farm my tank items again to be able to play those again, unless I have a second spare set of those items. But we all know how difficult it could be to get the right item with the right enchantments at the right level. So Mojang, please consider adding a way to disenchant items or even de-level them one by one by paying emeralds. So let's say I pay X emeralds to disenchant this enchantment on that item by one grade, and that gives me one the enchant points I used, regardless whether it's 1, 2, 3 or 4 enchantment points. And there should also be an option to completely disenchant an item and get all the points you've used on it and still keep that item. So please consider a system where maybe we use emeralds for this, or a new currency, but I'd rather have emeralds be what is used. So that would make things much easier for people without forcing us to keep making outs and leveling the outs, only so that we can try different builds. You see, this right now is leaving us only one option for playing multiple classes and switching between them, and that is to make new heroes and level those up. I mean, we can still choose to play the same hero and switch our items, but we would constantly be destroying our items, and that's not a fun way of handling that. So yeah, hopefully they add something like this. So a shared stash would also be nice as well, because that would mean we can share some gear on our outs, or we can make outs, level those up, get enchant points, enchant items, and then give those items to someone else, and maybe not level up completely an out, just enough so you can enchant that one item, use those enchant points. But I think another great way would be to make infinite enchant points, and maybe there are infinite enchant points. I've only reached level 42, 43, but people are saying that level 50 is the maximum. And if level 50 is the maximum, and if what people are saying is that you don't get any more enchant points after that, please consider this something that's a rumor. I have not confirmed it myself, so take it with a grain of salt. Maybe there are endless enchant points, and maybe after you hit level 50 you keep getting them, and you can keep enchanting and disenchanting new items. But right now the way people say it is, and I'm just relaying the news, is you cannot get any more than 50 enchant points, and I think Mojang would also do us a great favor if we keep getting enchant points after level 50. Endless supply of enchant points to keep getting second sets, third sets, and so on. So keep playing more. That would actually add to the endless replayability of the game. That would make people keep playing on the same hero more and more and more, to get those more enchant points, to keep trying new sets and new builds without having to level up and out. I hope they would consider those suggestions. So if you think that there's more things that this list is missing, feel free to share your ideas, feel free to share what you are missing from the game. I know that the majority of the people would say the game doesn't have enough content, and people would start comparing this to games like Path of Exile and Grim Dawn, but keep in mind Path of Exile and Grim Dawn have been out for ages and they've been getting constant content updates, so it's kind of unfair for a new freshly released game to compare it to a game or games that have been out for many years and have been getting constant content updates. I think if Mojang keeps updating this game with fresh new gameplay modes, I'm not talking more of the same content, but I'm talking about different types of content, maybe survival modes, maybe something that's randomized, kind of like the rifting we have in different games, maybe something that's just secret bounties or whatever. I mean, there's plenty of modes you can do. There's plenty of things like paywall modes, like whatever you can think of. There's some crazy ideas that the community can give, as long as they keep making new fresh content types and keep adding more to the new content, the way I think they will be with that first DLC. As long as they keep adding new items and new skills that are not stronger than the current ones, but just offer a different playstyle. You don't want power creep, you don't want new items making the old items useless and trash. You want new items that add new build variety that isn't the new meta, but another way to play that is still meta. That's probably what would be best for the game. So share your ideas, let me know what you think the game is missing according to you, and hopefully the developers might add some of those ideas soon into the game within the first year or so of content updates for the game. So yeah, I will be making a beginner's guide soon for the game once I get a little bit more experience in it and with all the things that there are in it. If you've enjoyed this video and want to be notified for when I upload more content like this for this game or other wooters of the hack and slash or shooter wooter variety, you could subscribe to my channel to get those content updates, and you can get notified by clicking on the bell button as well. So hope you enjoyed it. Hope everything was clear. If something wasn't, share your comments, questions, etc. in the section below. Keep it cool, folks. Thank you for watching, and until next time, goodbye.